It is good to see you today on day number 34 of our Lent video series. We are counting down the final few days of this series. It is Monday morning of Passion Week, and we just had our Palm Sunday celebration yesterday, and that was so much fun to be with the church and see the Sunshine Choir and really all the celebration there. And then, of course, last Thursday night, we had the Grain House worship night. That was great, and we just have so many things this coming week that are planned for part of the Easter celebration. Monday, Thursday, 7 p.m. I think the meal starts at 6:30, and then the worship starts at 7:30 p.m. This Thursday night, and then also just sunrise service on Easter morning, and our regular Easter worship service at 9:30 on next Sunday as well. So busy week as we really come down to the wire of celebrating Easter together as a church community and the true meaning of what Easter is all about. Well, if you are tuning in today, in this very moment, you are tuning into our 40 days of getting to know Jesus better, where we've been looking at 40 different names connected to Jesus. And today we are looking at Jesus as our shepherd. Jesus as our shepherd. It's interesting because we've actually looked at Jesus being a great shepherd. We've looked at Jesus being the good shepherd, I believe, was one of the names we looked at. And so we've already kind of looked at Jesus being our shepherd. In fact, the verse that we're getting it from is from 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 25. And I believe we even use this verse because we use this verse when we notice that Jesus is also shown as an overseer. But Peter writes this, he says, "For you were straying like sheep, but have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls." And so I think if we were to talk about Jesus being our shepherd without repeating things, I think today the emphasis would really be on how we are really sheep. And that shows why we need a shepherd. We're sheep. In fact, one of the interesting things when you have Isaiah chapter 53 give this grandiose description of the Messiah, which it points to Jesus being the Messiah with such clarity. If you ever read that chapter, Isaiah chapter 53, and it was written 700 years before the birth of Jesus, and so it's one of those passages that you're like, man, how did Isaiah know? Well, I think he was inspired by the Holy Spirit to write these things and to say these things. But here in Isaiah chapter 53, when he's talking about the Messiah, he says, "All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." And so I believe that's a description of why Jesus needs to be our shepherd. Because why? We're like sheep. We have gone astray. And when we look at our lives, sometimes when we look back at our lives, the mistakes that we've made, the sins that we've committed, it is obvious by just being human that we are in need of a shepherd. We're in need of a shepherd. And so that's why today, when we consider Jesus being the shepherd, I think it starts by realizing that we are sheep. We are sheep. Now, the Bible, shows that we are sheep over and over. In fact, that's a very, common description of man, not only in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament. And Jesus, makes that comment quite a bit upon how we are sheep. And so I asked this question, and I wrote down 4 answers. Why does the Bible refer to people as sheep? Why are we known as sheep? Well, the first reason is it's clear. Sheep are vulnerable and dependent. Like sheep cannot protect themselves. Sheep can only survive if they are cared for. Like sheep need constant guidance to find food and water. They panic easily if danger shows up. I mean, so there's just so many things that on why we are referred to as sheep, because we are all of those things, and we are vulnerable, we are dependent, and so that just shows why we need a shepherd. Well, then you have the next answer here, which is sheep need a shepherd, and the reason why I wrote this down, it kind of seems a little redundant, but I wanted to highlight the fact that sheep thrive only when they have a good shepherd. When someone leads them, feeds them, protects them, tends to them, that is so important for us to understand that sheep just, they can't thrive. They need a shepherd to thrive. If they have a poor shepherd, then they're not going to thrive. And so when you start to discuss Jesus being our shepherd, well, it's obvious why, because we need a shepherd. And then there's a third reason. Why does the Bible refer to us as sheep all the time? And this is what Isaiah 53 kind of highlighted. We have a tendency to wander. We have a tendency to wander. Like, it is hard for us to stay the course because of the tendency to create idols, the tendency to want to do things our own way. Pride gets in the way. We are not necessarily by nature humble creatures, and so because pride gets in the way, idolatry gets in the way, and we are born in sin, we have a tendency to wander, and because of that, we need a shepherd, and it's obvious that's why Jesus needs to be our shepherd. And then the last one is probably something that we don't necessarily talk about often, but it is true. Sheep are valuable. The shepherd cares for the sheep because sheep are valuable. You are valuable. You are loved by God. You are one of his treasured possessions. You were created with a purpose. You were created with a price. Like he chose you to be one of his sons and daughters. He knitted you together in your mother's womb. And so you are valuable. You have tremendous value. And we don't necessarily think about those things and realize that because of those things that we need a shepherd. And here comes Jesus to be our shepherd. And that's one of the things why we celebrate Easter, and one of the reasons why it's important to celebrate Easter, to keep in mind that Jesus is our shepherd. And so as you go through the rest of your day, think about these four things: why we're referred to as sheep, why you are vulnerable and dependent, why you need a shepherd, why you have a tendency to wander, why sheep are valuable, you are valuable, but why Jesus is our shepherd, and how great that is that we are celebrating that this week. We have a few more words to get to in the coming days as we come closer to Easter. So thank you for tuning in this morning to this next video installment of our Lent video series. God bless, and I'll see you tomorrow for day number 35. God bless.